So good morning. My name is Reverend Dr. Ron Fox, and I'd like to welcome you to the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast's Sunday morning service. And if there's anybody watching this that's never been to a Center for Spiritual Living before, we believe there's one God, many paths to that God, and we're here to love, honor, and support you no matter what your divine path is. And the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast is a safe haven for people of all beliefs and lifestyles. Whoever you are and wherever you find yourself on your journey of faith, you're welcome here. And so to begin our service this morning, Reverend Jenna Watkins is going to open us with a prayer, and then Carol Gabika is going to honor us here with a spiritual reading. So, Reverend Jenna.
So let's just settle back into our chairs, feeling the comfort as it holds us firmly in place. And let us recognize right here and right now that we are always, forever supported. We are supported by the truth that there is one spirit, one life, and we are an expression of that life. And that life walks with us. That life urges us forward, leads us into the unknown, and guides us through it. There is nothing to fear, for Spirit is with us always. Spirit, that which we express, is urging us forward into greater experiences of ourselves. And we are safe. We are safe. And I know that as we come together in this congregation, we recognize that we love and nurture and support each and every one of us here as community, as friends, as spiritual family. And we are supported as we go into the unknown. For there are people there, people who walk alongside us, urging us forward, encouraging us. This community is one of love and support. And I give thanks for your presence in my life. And I know that each and every person here feels the flow of Spirit moving through them and moving through this Sunday's talk, hearing the words that they need to hear, feeling the feelings they need to feel, gaining the wisdom they need to gain. For Spirit moves through Reverend Dr. Ron as he speaks to us. There is something for us to hear, something for us to learn, and something for us to grow. I give thanks for Reverend Dr. Ron as a channel of divine love, of divine spirit, and for all who are here listening to his words. I give thanks for your presence, and so it is. Amen.
Transition. That space in time between what is and what might be. The seasons teach us through demonstration, their color foliage to empty leaves, to new growth and bright birth hues. Our youth teaches through waddles to walks, to running feet throughout the house. Transition. Our calendars mark the days with celebrations of transition, holidays of thanks and giving, of new beginnings. Transition. Mirroring the model of life, we transition as well, stage by stage, as we watch the Rubik's Cube of our lives align the colors to celebrate victory. A life well spent, a life well shared, a celebration of transition.
Wow, Carol, thank you. That was absolutely beautiful. So this morning, before I begin the message, I I wanted to read something to you. I've spoken a number of times recently about how we're all one and how important we are to each other, particularly in this time. And this morning, I was kind of going on Facebook, and a friend of mine named Tom Brown put something on there that he wrote a few years ago that really speaks to our oneness. And I wanted to share it. And Tom and Becky and I became friends years ago when Tom was incarcerated in the Arizona prison system. And I used to go visit him. And Becky came with me once or twice. So I want to read this that Tom wrote about our oneness. He wrote, "It was a rainy day on the prison yard, an uncommon sight in the Arizona desert. For some reason, I became intent on watching the raindrops on the window of my dormitory. Two separate drops pushed by the wind, merged into one for a moment, and then divided again, each carrying with it a part of the other. Simply by this momentary touching, neither was what it had been before. And as each one went on to touch other raindrops, it shared not only itself, but what it had gleaned from the other. From the interaction of the raindrops, I was reminded that we never touch people so lightly that we do not leave a trace. Just as these raindrops repeatedly merged and divided, we can see that we too are unique and we are one. Conventional wisdom tells us we're separate. Higher wisdom informs us that we are one. A shift in perception reveals that we are the same consciousness manifesting in different bodies, the way leaves are part of the same tree. Can we get the truth of our connections? Do we understand that we are the starving child in an impoverished ghetto, the prison lifer who will never be free? The highest and most humble are we, wearing rags of torn cloth and robes of gold. Where the fool or the sage go, there we go. We are the light that shines through the eyes of all beings, truly one." So this morning, this morning, I want to speak on facing the unknown. It isn't possible to get a guarantee how life is going to turn out. There are always bumps and bruises along the way. And when we see something that we want to do, no matter what it is, taking the first step can always be scary. But you can't really feel. Spiritual masters say this all the time. You can't really feel because every experience serves us in some way. For instance, we learn how to do whatever it is better the next time, or we get a clearer idea of what it is we want to do, or some examples I think we all can relate to. We're in a relationship and perhaps we break up or we get divorced, and we move along, and along the way we find a better, healthier, more satisfying relationship. Or we lose a job, and that causes us to go out and to find a career that suits us better. John Allen Paulos once wrote, "Uncertainty is the only certainty there is, and knowing how to live with insecurity is the only security." So the late David Hawkins wrote in one of his books about courage. So I want to share some of what he said. He said, "Courage is a positive state. It's a feeling of I can. He said, "We feel skillful, we feel adequate, we feel capable, we feel alive, and we feel loving and giving with an overall zest for life." And he says, it takes courage to face our fears. And when people do that, we respect them. We respect people who step up and face their fears. And he said, courageous people move forward in life without knowing what the outcome will be, you know, and people that face difficult situations, it's not that they do it without without fear. They do it with the fear, but have the courage to overcome that fear in some way. And he gives an example, and I really related to this example, I have to tell you, about a man who's afraid of heights, because I am personally. And he said, so this fellow works on it. And one day a friend invites him to go to the Grand Canyon. And they go, and the fellow who has the fear of heights, he's standing about 6 feet back. And his friend reaches out with his hand and takes his hand and he says, come on, come closer, come to the edge with me. And the fellow does. And he does it with great trepidation, but he does it. And his friend says to him after they move back, his friend says, you did it. You did it. And I know how much courage that took. Even though he was scared, he did it. And he earned what he did. He earned his own self-respect, and he earned the respect of others. When we have a breakthrough experience like that, we increase our own self-acceptance. Ernest Holmes, who founded the Centers for Spiritual Living, wrote, the highest attitude of mind from which all else springs is one of perfect calm and absolute trust in the spirit. Rabbi Erwin Kula, he speaks in one of his books about when, and some of you that do counseling or have had counseling might be able to relate to this. He says, you know, when people come to me for counseling, they want to be assured of the outcome that they want. They want to know that things are going to work out. And he said, you know, I want that for them too, but I can't promise them. I can't promise them that. And he said, the truth is that certainty isn't all it's cracked up to be, because certainty, it can lead to arrogance. It can lead to boredom. It can lead to complacency, and it can lead to dullness. And he said, living in the mystery of our life, it means dancing sometimes with certainty and sometimes with uncertainty, sometimes with knowing and sometimes with not knowing. And most of the decisions, think about this, most of the decisions we make, whether they're the big decisions in our life or the small decisions, but most of the decisions that we make come from a place of uncertainty. We don't know where our decisions are going to lead, because uncertainty is a part of the human drama. And in our journey, as we move along our path, we're going to have losses, we're going to have gains, there are going to be wonders, there are going to be miracles, and there are going to be tragedies. And in the end, we have to act on faith. Faith that it'll all work out. Not perhaps as we want it to, but from a place of discovery and a place of new perspectives. So he gives an example there. I was really into Rabbi Kula this week, because he gives an example that my ex-wife and I had the same example he did. And so I want to share it. And the example is, he had a daughter, and this was this happened with my oldest son, that after they completed kindergarten, somebody came back to us and said, you know, for me, it was, Jeremy's really not the most mature kid. Probably do him good if he did kindergarten again. And imagine what that does to you as a parent. You say, wow, do kindergarten again. Wow, what's that going to do? Will it help him to be more mature the year after? Or is it going to crush him that all his friends are moving on and he's not? What's that going to speak to his self-acceptance, to how he feels about himself? So Rabbi Kula said they let their daughter stay back, and it was fine. I got to tell you, I don't remember what we did. I'm pretty sure we let him stay back, but I don't remember. And the point is that we worry so much about our decisions, and it's probably true no matter what we do. It's going to be okay. It'll be fine. Like I said, I'm pretty sure we did hold him back, and it's fine. You know, it didn't ruin his life. He got through everything, and so did their daughter. We put so much concern into it. And the next person I want to talk about, Gail Brenner, wrote an article called Loving the Unknown. And she says, you know, fear makes us think of all of the negative things that could happen. And that's what I was trying to say with that example. Our imaginations go wild. And so we get stuck and we limit ourselves, or we play it safe. We think things like, I'll never find another job. I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life. What if I fail? And the truth is, we cannot know ahead of time what's going to happen. And when we let go of what we imagined, when we let go of these great fears, what happens is then we can focus on what we need to do, on what the next steps are. And then because we can do that, we can relax and we can find a place of peace. And Gail says, the unknown is the truth, and the truth shall set us free. So say yes to not knowing. Say yes to not knowing what the future is going to bring, but trust in it. Reverend Cynthia James is a friend of Becky and mine, and she used to be on the staff of Mile High and now is doing independent work. And she wrote an article. It didn't say in the article what year she wrote it, but I know it wasn't this year. And I also know how apropos it is to everything that's going on in our lives now. And she started it out, she said, this is an extraordinary time in history, a time of transition and a time of challenge. And she said, what we do, we want to believe in possibility, but it's so hard to look beyond what's going on. It's so hard to look beyond appearances. She said, but what if we looked beyond the pain and looked with the eyes of faith? She quotes Ernest Holmes, who said, always the man who has faith in his own ability accomplishes far more than the one who has no confidence in himself. Those who have great faith have great power. I really like that. Those who have great faith have great power. And faith shows us that our good is always available. And there's never been a time in history that no matter what has been going on, that people haven't prospered. And so Cynthia says, ask yourself, what is the nature of my destiny? And how can it be fulfilled now with grace and with ease? So I want to tell you a story now. And usually when I do stories in a message, I tell you what I see as the moral or the, but I'm not going to do that this time. And I hope you'll see why. I'm going to let everybody come to their own conclusions about the meaning of this story. And it's a story I read years ago about Ram Dass. And Ram Dass was speaking to a group in the 70s, okay? In the 1970s, he's speaking to this group, and he says the group is pretty homogeneous. It's almost exclusively people in their 20s. Most of them are dressed in white. They have sandals on. They're vegetarians. He said they probably use hallucinogenics, and they probably believe in some guru from the East. And so as he's giving this lecture, he notices somebody else sitting in the front row. And this person is an elderly woman. And he said she had on black Oxford shoes, a floral print dress, and a hat with fake cherries on top. And he looks at her and he says to himself, she can't possibly get what I'm talking about. She can't possibly know what I'm talking about. And at the end of the lecture, she's in line to greet him. And when she gets up to him, he leans over and he says to her, you know, don't you? And then he says, how do you know? And she leans over and whispers in his ear, I crochet. And Ram Dass said, that's when I realized the game is much bigger than we could ever understand. Much bigger. I crochet. So what are some things that we could do to make ourselves more comfortable with the unknown? So let me give you a few suggestions. One of the things we could do is admit how you feel. Admit it. If you feel fear, feel it. Let it be part there and feel it. But also know that you are more than your fear. Act. Do something. If you've got a goal you want to reach or do something, do it. Take a small step. It's okay to begin with a small step and then another small step, because every success breeds more success. A third thing you can do is keep on keeping on. When tough times come, acknowledge them, but keep moving on. Don't let fear stop you from living your dream. Take a moment and think about a time that you took a leap of faith and it turned out to be a great decision. Whether it was what I said before, to leave a relationship, to take a new job, to make a move somewhere that turned out wonderful. And then think about a time that you didn't listen to your heart. How did it feel? Remember the disappointment. And perhaps, and I know this is true for me, if I don't listen to my heart, remember how upset you were and perhaps even angry with yourself. Maybe you saw somebody else that did listen and they're living your dream. That's not fun. That's not fun. Alan Cohen, who's a wonderful writer, said, not acting out of fear is not the answer. And he quotes Will Rogers, who said, you might be on the right track, but if you're sitting down, you're going to get run over. You can't, listen to this. This to me makes so much sense. You can't learn without doing, and you can't do without learning. Let me say that again. You can't learn without doing, and you can't do without learning. And he quotes a tombstone that reads, no runs, no hits, no errors. And he said, you know, whoever that was, they didn't lose, but they didn't win. They didn't even play. And he said, you know, God's not looking for superstars. God's looking for players. And you can lose everything but your potential. The door is always open for us to use our gifts. So dare to take a chance. Emmett Fox wrote, and I've said this before, do it trembling if you must, but do it. You know, I thought this week about something that I read a long time ago, and I'm sure I've said it here before, but somebody went to a monk who lives in an abbey and said, so what do you do all day? And his response was, we fall and get up, fall and get up, fall and get up. So I want to close this morning by reading by the late Rabbi Shani Labowitz. And here's what she wrote. She said, when you look within, you face your fears and move beyond them. You see yourself as God sees you and hear yourself as God hears you. In the breath that you share with God, the rhythm of your heart calms, the thoughts of your mind clear, and the wings of your spirit soar. Then you recognize that in the ordinary, there is a profound, extraordinary you. With the profound awareness of the divinity within yourself, you exit the holy gate and turn toward the pathway that reveals the gate of your heart. Thank you for being here this morning or wherever you watch this. I hope you have a wonderful week and God bless you.